Today, we're diving into one of the most basic, yet incredibly dangerous failures in all of cybersecurity, OWASP A09. This is the one that lets attackers become ghosts in the machine, moving through your systems completely and utterly unseen.
Just imagine that for a second. A truly perfect crime. No clues left behind for the investigators, not a single trail to follow, no way of knowing what they took or even how they did it. It is, without a doubt, an investigator's absolute worst nightmare.
Well, that exact nightmare scenario, it plays out all the time in our digital world. And what's really shocking is that it's usually not some super complex, sophisticated hack that makes attackers invisible. Nope. It's often just a fundamental failure to see what's happening right in front of our faces. This is the world of OWASP A19.
So what are we really talking about with A09? Well, it really just boils down to three key breakdowns. First, you failed to even record the important clues. Second, you failed to protect those clues from being tampered with or erased. And third, you failed to react to them in time. And the result of all that? Attackers get a free pass to roam around your network, completely invisible.
And look, this is not some niche, obscure problem. A09 keeps its spot in the OWASP top 10 for a very good reason. The security community, the people on the front lines, keep saying this is how major breaches actually happen. It's not about counting specific software flaws or CVEs, it's about real-world impact. And that recent name change is so important. It's not just logging anymore. Adding the word alerting drives home the point that just collecting data isn't enough. You have to have an alarm system that actually goes off when something bad happens.
All right, so let's break this down, starting with the first part of the problem, the evidence itself. It's pretty simple, really. You can't solve a crime if the clues were never even there to begin with.
You know, most systems are set up to log the good stuff, a successful login, a finished purchase, but attackers, they make a lot of noise with their failures first. Ignoring 100 failed login attempts in a minute is literally like hearing someone jiggling your front doorknob over and over and over again and just deciding to ignore it. It's one of the clearest signs there is that you're under attack.
And this right here perfectly shows the difference between useless noise and actual evidence. On the left, what do we have? Error. Great, thanks. What am I supposed to do with that? But on the right, now we have a story. We have the who, the what, the where, and the when. An admin account failed to log in at this exact time from this exact IP address. Now that is a clue you can actually work with. But even if you have the most perfect, detailed evidence in the world, it doesn't matter if the bad guy can just delete it. Storing your logs only on the server that's being attacked? That's the digital version of leaving the bank's only security camera footage inside the vault. The very first thing a smart attacker does after they break in is find those logs and wipe them clean. All their tracks just gone.
Now, collecting the evidence, that's only half the battle. You could have terabytes of perfect log data, but if nobody is actually watching it, it's just digital dust collecting in a corner while the bad guys are walking out the front door with your data.
Let this number sink in for a second. 204. According to IBM's latest report, that's the average number of days it takes a company to even realize an attacker is inside their network. We're talking almost 7 months. Just think about the kind of damage an intruder can do with 7 months of free reign. That is the staggering cost of a silent alarm.
So why the huge delay? Well, a lot of the time, logs are only reviewed weekly, maybe monthly, but not in real time. And even worse, the alarm systems just aren't set up to spot an attack. I mean, an attacker could slam your login page with 100 password attempts in 60 seconds, and if the alert rule isn't there or the threshold is too high, you get nothing, just crickets.
But, there's a flip side to this. It's what we call alert fatigue. It's like a car alarm that goes off every time the wind blows. Pretty soon, you just start ignoring it. When security teams are bombarded with thousands of false alarms, the real critical alerts just get lost in all that noise. A noisy alarm is just as useless as a silent one.
Okay, so theory is one thing, but let's talk about what this looks like in the real world. How does an attacker actually use these failures to pull off a successful breach? Let's walk through it.
So here's a classic, a brute force attack. It's noisy, it's simple, and it should be incredibly easy to spot. The attacker is just hammering on your front door, trying every key on their ring. But if all those failed attempts aren't logged, or if they don't trigger an alert, eventually one of those keys is going to work. The door opens, they walk right in, and since no alarm ever went off, they could be in there for months before anyone even realizes the door was unlocked.
All right, this next one is a little more advanced.
The attacker gets a foothold, but then they do something really important. They give themselves administrator powers. Now that move alone should set off every alarm bell in the building. But if the logging is poor, and especially if those logs are stored right there on the compromised server, the attacker can just promote themselves to king of the castle and then immediately delete the record of their own coronation.
And now for the one that should really send a chill down your spine. Imagine you're doing everything right. You're running a security scan with professional tools like Burp Suite or Zap, tools designed to find vulnerabilities, and your security team sees absolutely nothing. Total silence. That silence is the loudest alarm you will ever hear. It's telling you that a real attacker could be doing the exact same thing, and you would be completely and utterly blind to it.
So here's the bottom line. The damage doesn't stop when the breach is over. Without logs, your incident response team is flying blind. Your forensics team has zero evidence to work with. You might not be able to comply with regulations that require you to report the breach. And maybe worst of all, you can't learn from the attack to stop the next one. You're just doomed to repeat the same mistakes.
Okay, enough of the doom and gloom, right? This isn't some impossible problem. Actually, these failures are completely preventable. So let's flip the script and walk through the playbook for building defense that can actually see an attack happening and do something about it.
First things first, you have to record the right evidence. This list right here is your non-negotiable starting point. You've got to log every single login attempt, especially the failures. You have to log when someone tries to access something they shouldn't. And every single log entry needs that critical context we talked about. Who, what, where, and when.
Step 2, you have to protect that evidence like it's a crime scene. Get your logs off the machine they came from and into a separate, centralized, secure system. Use technologies like immutable storage, which basically makes it impossible for anyone, including an attacker, to change or delete a log once it's written. This completely shuts down their ability to cover their tracks. Okay, step 3 is all about building an alarm that actually works. That means you have to carefully tune your rules so they catch real threats, but without creating that alert fatigue we talked about. You have to test your alerts to make sure they actually fire when they're supposed to. And maybe most importantly, when an alert goes off, it needs to go to a real person who is ready with a playbook to act on it immediately. And finally, let's talk about a couple of huge pitfalls you absolutely have to avoid. First, whatever you do, do not let your logs become a treasure chest for attackers. Never, ever log sensitive data like passwords, API keys, or personal information. That's a disaster waiting to happen. Second, you have to sanitize your log data. If you don't, a smart attacker can inject fake log entries and send your investigators on a wild goose chase, wasting precious time. So that brings us to the one crucial question you have to ask about your own systems. Are you truly watching for intruders? Are you generating clear, meaningful signals that lead you right to them? Or are you just creating a wall of digital noise that, ironically, becomes the perfect place for them to hide? The answer to that question is the difference between having real security and a dangerously false sense of it.